Silo Season 3, Episode 8 gave us two very different endings, but both came down to a choice. In the before times, Daniel walks away from the Silo project and chooses Helen. And in the current timeline, Juliet willingly surrenders, only to be locked in the same cell as Sims, where Camille tells him,
"You made your choice."
But those weren't even the biggest reveals, because this episode finally unveils what Knox's father secretly designed for Ed Hardwood. And it also revealed the heartbreaking truth about how Solo's mother sacrificed herself to save Silo 17. But most importantly, and for the first time in 3 seasons, nanotechnology is confirmed. And that last one could change everything we thought we knew about the outside. So today I'm breaking down 5 clues you probably missed, plus the biggest unanswered questions I still have after watching this episode. And don't worry, there will be no book spoilers because I have not even read the books yet. But before I get started, let me introduce myself if you're new here. And if you're not new here, then welcome back. My name is Brandi, and I realize that you could be on any channel in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So please go ahead and like this video. It really does help the channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy watching TV show breakdowns. Now, clue number 1 is a clue into what's really killing people outside. Remember that mysterious buzzing right before Lucas and Kennedy lost contact with Silo 18? Well, episode 8 finally gives us our answer. If you look closely at the reflection in Kennedy's helmet here, that's a drone. And during the attack, notice where Lucas gets hit. He gets hit right through his radio. And that immediately made me think about Charlotte's squadron, because when the Grey Goo attacked their F-35s, it went after their electronics and communications too. So maybe the radio made Lucas an easier target. But I know what you're thinking, because what hit Lucas, it just looked like it could have been a regular bullet and not Grey Goo. And that's where I think that we need to stop assuming that nanotechnology has to look the same way every time. Because maybe Grey Goo is just one form or one delivery method of a much larger nano weapon system. So I guess we'll have to wait to see if we notice any changes in Lucas over the next few episodes to determine if it was a nanotech bullet or maybe just a regular bullet. But whatever hit Lucas apparently went straight through his cleaning suit. And here's where the real problem is, because Lucas doesn't die. He makes it all the way to Silo 17 with a compromised suit. So if the outside atmosphere itself is poisonous, why didn't it kill him? Especially when you remember that Juliet sent Lucas and Kennedy outside hours earlier than the time she agreed upon with Camille and the algorithm. Maybe the danger outside isn't always there. Maybe something has to be deployed. Because if you remember what happened to the people of Silo 17, they did escape. Then came the mysterious dust and the wind, and people started dying. So what if that wasn't ordinary dust? Maybe the people of Silo 17 survived one method of extermination only for another one to be deployed outside. And this brings me to the safeguard, because after this episode, I'm starting to think the poison inside that pipe is nanotechnology. Solo's mother cuts into the safeguard pipe, and whatever is inside begins escaping. She uses her welding torch while trying to contain it, and eventually she manages to seal the pipe. And apparently it works, at least for a while, that is. But Grey Goo has one terrifying characteristic that can explain what happened next. The concept revolves around nanomachines capable of self-replication. So what if Solo's mom stopped the main release, but some microscopic amount had already escaped and started replicating? Maybe there wasn't enough to immediately kill everyone, but given enough time, it multiplied. And eventually, something that started inside the safeguard system could have become the mysterious dust and wind that Jimmy remembers outside. Now, I'm not saying that the show has confirmed any of this, but it could answer one of the biggest questions surrounding Silo 17. How could they defeat the safeguard and still die? Maybe they stopped the delivery system, but they didn't stop what had already been delivered. And clue number 2 is a clue into what the founders are possibly still hiding. Now, episode 8 made it feel like Pear and the Thurmans were finally coming clean. They seemingly explained what happened to Charlotte's squadron. They reveal the nano weapon, and they tell everyone why they're building 50 silos. And I'll talk more about that number 50 later. They're telling everyone enough to feel like they're being transparent without necessarily telling them everything. And Charlotte is where I get really suspicious, because I have a feeling that Charlotte is the prototype for something much bigger. And when we finally learn what really happened to her, it's going to explain a lot about how the silos actually work. Because before her mission, the Thurmans had a mysterious associate already following her, and Charlotte experienced that unexplained feeling of paranoia. Now, we've assumed that her later memory problems came from a traumatic brain injury. But what if her memory issues started before the mission? And here's something else that caught my attention. I rewatched the episode of Charlotte's squadron being attacked, and during the scene, Charlotte yells, and now this episode shows us a drone reflected in Kennedy's helmet, and later Thurman specifically tells Charlotte that we could use a good drone pilot. So now I'm just wondering, on that day particularly, if she could have actually been piloting remotely while some kind of simulation or manipulated memory made her experience that mission as if she were really there. Because we never saw Charlotte's plane actually crash, and we never saw her get rescued, and we still don't know exactly how she survived when the others didn't, because the story they told her wasn't clear to me on this episode, and we never even got to hear Steve's recordings for ourselves. Also, don't forget that Daniel and Helen were on their way to meet with the source who was present at the attack before their minivan was taken over. So basically what I'm saying is that maybe the mission that Charlotte remembers isn't exactly the mission that happened. That's the story that was written for her to actually remember. And if her memories were being manipulated earlier than we realized, then how much of this show's history can we actually trust? Memories can be erased. Records can be destroyed. So now I have to keep a closer eye on that 352-year timeline that they've been telling us, especially when at the end of this episode, Daniel calls Pear and his crew cray-cray, and Helen responds, nobody says that anymore. And maybe that was just a joke, but here's the biggest controlled truth of all. Pear says they're building 50 silos, yet somehow this project eventually includes Silo 1, the algorithm, the safeguard, memory manipulation, and the ability to exterminate an entire silo. So episode 8 may have finally told us why the silos were built, but I don't think they've told us what they're really building. And Charlotte may be the key in unlocking that mystery. And clue number 3 is a clue into how little even Bernard knows about the silo system. When Bernard maps out the silos, he puts Silo 1 in the center with 7 groups of 7 surrounding it. So that's 49 plus Silo 1, 50 silos. And this isn't the first time Bernard's math has had me confused. Because back in season 2, Bernard specifically corrected Lucas and said there are technically 51 silos. But here's what's interesting. Pear also says they're building 50 silos, and Bernard's map in this episode appears to account for 50 total. It seems like something fishy is going on with the number of silos. But then Juliet discovers something even stranger.
I think we sent it to the wrong panel.
Based on the direction of the cameras, Silo 17 is turned. That's why they initially sent Shirley toward the wrong safeguard panel. Now, maybe that's simply because of terrain or construction, but what if it's intentional? If every silo were oriented exactly the same, once you figured out where the safeguard pipe enters one silo, you will know how to find that safeguard in all of the silos pretty easily. But rotate each silo differently, and suddenly Silo 17's blueprint can't save Silo 18. And with all these hidden pipes, lifts, and underground infrastructure that we're discovering, I'm starting to wonder if the silos were deliberately designed so that knowing the secrets of one will never give you the full blueprint to another, which would mean even Bernard was never given the full map. And clue number 4 is a clue into how Juliet might actually stop the safeguard. Because while Juliet is trying to figure out the hidden infrastructure between the silos, Knox and Billings may have just discovered the hidden infrastructure inside their own. Knox's father, Gus, finally admits that years ago, he designed a secret transportation system for Hardwood. And when Knox and Billings find it, there's a hidden door in supply leading to a lift that goes to the mines. So now we know exactly how Glenda Hardwood was in the mines and then she was in supply within 10 minutes. And Hardwood claims that he started hiding supplies during a rebellion because he was afraid people would break into supply. But that's an awful lot of secret infrastructure just to hide some light bulbs, especially when you remember who Gus is. He's an engineer and he's been stealing and selling diamond drill bits. And we've already seen what appears to be drilling technology based on Daniel's design. So my question isn't just what are they stealing, it's what are they building? Because episode 8 gives us a very interesting parallel with the before times. Charlotte keeps insisting that her squadron never reached its target. And Thurman tells her, you didn't have to. Because while everyone was focused on a mission happening above ground, the Army Corps of Engineers
Spent 2 years digging a 75-mile tunnel from Turkmenistan to right below the Iranian facility.
The second your squad came under attack, we blew up their facility.
The real plan was happening underground the entire time. And now, 352 years later, allegedly, we have another engineer, another secret transportation system, and stolen drilling equipment. And something happening underground that almost nobody knows about. So different timelines, but the same strategy. So how far will Hardwood's operation actually go? We know the lift reaches the mines, but does it stop there? Because if Gus has the drilling equipment and Hardwood controls mining, and they may have been secretly moving supplies down there, what have they been digging? Could they have discovered some of the founders' original infrastructure? Maybe they found another tunnel, or maybe they've been drilling toward another silo. And remember what Juliet needs right now. Her route through Judicial to reach the safeguard has failed. She's sitting in a jail cell, but Knox and Billings may have just uncovered an entirely new route to the safeguard. And clue number 5 is a clue into whose side Camille is actually on. But first, I need to revisit something I theorized on my last silo video. When Camille brought Sims into that supposedly private jail cell, I wondered if she was actually setting him up. Well, on this episode, the algorithm tells Camille,
you found out your husband betrayed you.
How does the algorithm know that? Either Camille told the algorithm that off screen and we weren't able to see it, or the algorithm heard that conversation as I suspected. And apparently Camille took sleep on the couch to a whole new level because this woman really locked her husband in a jail and she went back to work. But here's where Camille gets really calculated. The algorithm tells her that surveillance returned to Silo 17 and Lucas and Kennedy's bodies are missing. Yet Camille tells Sims that Lucas and Kennedy didn't make it. Now, girl, you know that's not confirmed. I think Camille is testing him. She doesn't reveal the algorithm may have been wrong. Instead, she feeds Sims false information and questions him about why Juliet sent them. And then comes the ending. Juliet gets arrested and Camille puts her in the same cell as Sims. I think Camille is being very strategic here, especially if that cell really is private, unless that's exactly what Camille wants. Or if my theory from last episode was right and the algorithm can hear them, maybe it's a trap designed to get Sims and Juliet talking. But either way, putting those two together was not an accident. Camille is lying to Sims. The algorithm is withholding information from Camille, and somebody may be listening to somebody. At this point, Camille isn't choosing sides. She's controlling what she thinks the other person knows. And Camille stepping into Bernard's old role brings me to the biggest questions I still have after this episode. But real quick, if you're enjoying this breakdown, be sure to like this video and hype it up as well, because we still got some big questions to get into, starting with Bernard. Now, Bernard's character arc, it feels almost complete, right? He believed in the system. He did terrible things in its name. He realized he'd been lied to, and now he's helping Juliet destroy the very system he once protected. So what's left for Bernard now? Because redemption arcs and TV shows make me very nervous. Is Bernard being set up to sacrifice himself to save Silo 18? Or does this show have one final twist for him before his story ends? Also, was Bernard's confession foreshadowing Camille's future? Why did the show have Bernard confess to Juliet right now that he killed Judge Meadows because the system told him it was necessary? Now, will Camille take out Sims if she was told to? And next question, did Mike really kill Orla? And I'm sorry, but we're trusting Ed Hardwood now. Mike could absolutely be guilty, but Hardwood also has every reason to redirect attention away from himself. But hopefully Billings is playing this smart. And honestly, maybe Mike needs to stay locked up for a minute anyway, while we figure out what Hardwood and Gus have really been cooking underground. And is Daniel setting Helen up, or does he really like her? Because I've been suspicious of Daniel all season. So when Daniel suddenly hops on that helicopter, he kisses her and chooses her over the project, I really do want to believe him. But there's one more thing bothering me too. Right before Daniel leaves, he uses Rosemary to trigger Charlotte's memory of their mother. And remember, Daniel previously asked the doctor whether or not false memories could be implanted. So I honestly couldn't tell what that scene was telling us. Did Charlotte accurately remember their mom, or was Daniel testing her memory and she actually failed the test? Because Daniel's reaction afterward had me wondering if he knew something that Charlotte didn't. But nonetheless, guys, if you made it this far in a video, please let me know by putting the words cray cray down below, or you can even put the crazy emoji down below, along with your theories and any clues that I may have missed. And don't forget, I will be covering Dark Matter Season 2, which drops on August 28th, also on Apple TV. So make sure you stay tuned for those breakdowns as well. But that is all I have for you today. You guys stay safe out there, and until I see you next time, peace.